David, and I'm the host of In the Growth Space, and I'm really glad to have you here with us today. We're making our way into the new year, and again, I've got some great guests this year and great conversations. And one of the things that I'm learning is to really just continually embrace change. I can safely say that as a younger version of myself, I did not like change, and I certainly didn't embrace it. But today I'm learning that it really can be incredibly exciting, and I've come to know that everything in life is in a constant state of change. And the fact is, I can either embrace it or I can resist it. And one entails a fixed mindset and the other the growth mindset. And if you've been listening for any length of time at all, you know that I love a growth mindset. And today's guest definitely has a growth mindset, and I can't wait to introduce you to him. So today, my guest is Pete Schramm. And Pete is a founder of a software company, but he's really someone who's learned to get out of his comfort zone. And I really love what his LinkedIn profile says. I'm going to read it to you because I think it's really cool. It says, "Farm to founder? Odd, I know. Also, I'm 6'8". Yes, I played basketball. Quick rundown on me and what I'm all about and what I'm up to. The farm made me who I am today. Sports strengthened teamwork skills. Played hoops with pros in Hong Kong. Steelers are my football team. Education taught me how to solve problems. The people I surround myself with opened my eyes to opportunities that I didn't know existed." Now, I'm sure that you can see why I want to have Pete on and have this conversation. He migrated to DC for college. He spent a decade in DC as his home base while he traveled around the world for work and school. And he's been to 30 countries so far. He started his career at Lockheed Martin, and he had an amazing opportunity there to keep our soldiers safe and leading teams to build complex technology. And now he has a technology called Lattitude, and he's launched that as a B2B enterprise SaaS company. And so we're going to have a great conversation with him today, and I'm really excited to introduce you to Pete. So let's get into that conversation right now. Well, hey, Pete, welcome to In the Growth Space, man. So great to have you here on the podcast.
David, I'm excited to be here, and let's talk about some growth.
Yeah, right on, man. Right on. So you've had an incredible growth journey, and both literal and figurative too, as well. So just for everybody, I know you can't tell this, either if you're just listening to it via audio or if you're watching on YouTube, but Pete, you're 6'8", man. That's tall. I'm sure you get asked all the time, did you play basketball and then like, when did you start growing?
So it's something I can't change, right?
Yeah, man.
And there are indeed a couple of questions that I'll get asked every day. Oh my gosh, how tall are you? Do you like being tall? Where do you buy your clothes? Did you play basketball? How tall are your parents? And I'm so grateful to answer all of them. I always say that, being tall, it's an amazing, gift. Except whenever you have to go buy clothes or get into cars and go ride on airplanes. So I was always tall. I think in sixth grade, my friend Alexandria was the only person in our grade that was taller than me.
Really?
But other than that, I was usually top one or two in my class. And then, get to college, and there are definitely taller people there. But one of the interesting things was from age 8 to 15, my shoe size kept getting bigger. And I, reflect, and I'm like, my gosh, my parents are a couple of saints, because each year my age would go up by 1 and my shoe size would go up by 1.
Oh,
and you think about that, if you had to change those pieces of your wardrobe every year,
gosh.
Man, that'd be frustrating. But again, I'm very fortunate.
God bless them, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, so I wanted to have you on the podcast because number one, you're an amazing guy and a very interesting growth journey. And I really loved it. And, one of the things I know that you've said, and I'd love to just kind of explore this a little bit, is that, it's the people that surrounded you that gave you kind of the most I'm going to paraphrase here, but the most growth, and it gave you kind of a vision to a lot of opportunities. And so, like, where did you come up with that awareness? And talk a little bit about those people that are around you and how important they are.
Well, I think somebody that walks this walk and talks this talk is Alex Persglove, and that's the one that connected us. So shout out to
Yes,
Alex
yes.
for
Yeah, right on.
revitalizing that piece. But it really starts off with my mom and dad. So grew up on a farm.
Mhm.
Western Pennsylvania. You might have heard of Schramm's Farm. Ross Park Mall
Yeah.
used to be the family farm, and that's what I grew up with, right? So my dad was always saying that, hey, whenever you're a farmer's market, you always had to be nice to individuals, nice to people. And so I just started talking to different individuals and being able to form a relationship with just about anybody and meeting them where they are. And then my mom would talk about, hey, you have to be, kind of growing professionally and always bettering yourself. So it's like, okay, so I need to
Mm,
do this thing where I build relationships and I talk with people, and then I need to be growing professionally and building and developing myself. So how
mm.
can I do those two things together? Well, a lot of trial and error. That's
Yeah,
what I'll tell you.
right.
Because you don't hit it off with every single individual. And me being, high energy, very outgoing, very extroverted, larger than your typical, individual, it can be a lot for
Mm,
some people. So whenever I get into a new situation, new role at work, I always try and talk to as many folks on the team that I can, right? And I just ask them, hey, Dave, how'd you get to where you are today? What would you have done differently? Any
mm.
tips that you give me, as a new person in
I
this
love that.
situation? And that was the starting point. And then you figure out, hey, do I want to go back to this individual, more times? Yes or no, right? Because it's you don't
Mhm.
hit it off with everybody, but there's
Sure.
a lot of outreach, a lot of time spent building relationships. And
Mhm.
I truthfully wouldn't be where I am today without the amazing people that helped guide me and kind of prod me in the right direction and away from the wrong direction.
Yeah, gosh, I love that. And what a cool thing to have your parents give you the gift of growth in the sense of, hey, talk to people, get around people and learn from people. And I love that about you because there's a curiosity about you that I've noticed that I think it's really important for all leaders to be able to be very curious about everything and the people that are in front of them, the just everything. And I love that. So I'm curious about your curiosity. Where did you get that? And maybe where do you think that started? Did it start on the farm?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of everything started on the farm, but then
Sure.
how did I take action on it over time?
Yeah.
And I think it's because I always strive to be the best.
Mm,
And, if you're the smartest person in the room or the most knowledgeable person in the room, then I don't know if you're growing, right? So I always
right.
try and do two things: challenge and opportunity. And I did this whenever I changed high schools, whenever I, quit college sports, whenever I, left a big company, whenever I left the corporate world, right?
Mm,
Challenge myself to go out of my comfort zone
mm,
and dig into new opportunities so I can better the lives of others and
mm,
continue to grow myself. So those are the pieces, and the more people you meet, the more stories you hear. Just like us, right? We had a
yeah.
conversation. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so many other circles that are coming together. You should talk to so and so. You should talk to so and
Yeah.
so. And it's just like, wow, this is my people, right? And
Yeah.
then, even our previous conversation, I was like, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? You're like, oh, I'm so glad you asked about that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just, good people helping good people.
Hmm.
And, I think that's what it's all about, right? That's truly our purpose here. So my curiosity is
Yeah.
about pushing out of my comfort zone consistently
Yeah.
to find more of those opportunities to grow and help others.
I love that so much. So often I work with a lot of emerging leaders, and we talk a lot about getting outside of our comfort zone, and that process. I mean, by definition, it's not comfortable. It's not easy, and it feels really like not so great sometimes. And so I'm kind of interested in hearing, how did you get over that discomfort or how did you press into that discomfort of being outside of that comfort zone?
It's discomfort and it's time consuming, right? Meeting with new
Yeah.
people and going to networking events and doing stuff. Yeah, it's not easy to do,
Hmm.
but it also takes a lot of time. And if you have, leadership that's not really in a growth mindset, right, and
Hmm.
supportive of you doing these kinds of things, they might look at it in a negative way. So I think you need to have that, perfect recipe of you are an outgoing individual. You do have
Hmm.
the ability to put in the time. And it's a bit of a grind, right? Continuing to develop relationships, but also the support from your superiors is very, very important. And I've had, both sides of that, right? Where leadership's like, oh my gosh, he's just talking to everybody. What the heck's wrong with him? Just get some more work done, buddy. And it's like, hey, I got my stuff done. I'm trying to, do some of those stretch assignments you suggested I do. And then also
Yeah.
have people where it's like, oh my gosh, Pete knows everybody. Like we're headed for success no matter what. So there was definitely a point that, hey, going into a room and, kicking off a networking event, it's kind of like, all right, I don't know anybody here. So what do I do? And I think you can go to the bar and grab a drink, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and usually you find people in line right there,
Yep.
and that's a fine place to start. And then I'm a tall person, so I also look for another really tall person in the room. And then also, if you see a couple of folks at a table and there's some hors d'oeuvres or something, just grab a little plate of food and walk over and just say like, hey, how's everybody doing? Right? They're
Hmm.
all there for the same purpose. And if they're
Yeah.
not nice to you and say, "Ooh, get away," then you really struck out. But I haven't found one of those before, so could it
Yeah.
happen? I guess it could, but it just is a positive mindset and a can do
Mm.
attitude.
Yeah, gosh, I love that, Pete. I wanted to kind of take our listeners back a little bit in time because I know that you started out as an engineer, and I mean, as I talk with you, I can't even imagine you as an engineer because it's like it breaks you break all of the stereotypical molds, man. And so what drew you to mechanical engineering and that field? Because I mean, you had an amazing career to start with, and you were with what Lockheed Martin, if I'm not mistaken, right? So
Yes.
you started out with a big company.
Yeah. So why did I go into mechanical engineering? Because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, and I could get any kind of job with that.
Yeah.
So the people
Yeah.
that were guiding me throughout kind of high school and college, I'll never forget. A couple of my cousins said,
Mm.
"Stick with some kind of engineering." Right. A couple of other people said, "Get some kind of an engineering degree and don't stop it." Right. Because nobody will ever be able to take that technical degree away from you. And you think about, okay, from an ME base, you can go into med school, you can go into law school, you can go into just about anything. I went into manufacturing, defense contracting, production operations, right, and then entrepreneurship afterwards. The power of engineering is that it teaches you a way to think, right,
Yeah.
and how to go through solving problems. And
Mm.
I'm not gonna lie to you, that was hard as could be. Oh
I'll
my
bet.
gosh, like it was. And then I was playing two sports. I had a job, an
Mm.
internship, and I was involved in just about every club you could do.
Hmm.
So it's not like I was a slouch while I was on campus down in DC. But I studied mechanical engineering so that I could uh, have as many opportunities as possible later in life. And then I did it again for my master's degree. And interesting story, I have had a grand total of zero mechanical engineering jobs in my life.
Oh man, I love that. So for all of the listeners who are still in college, no discouragement there, but keep going.
Yeah, well, go, get through it, right? And
Yeah,
then
for
I
sure.
did my
Yeah.
master's degree while I was full time, while I was working full time. And it's
Yeah.
one of those things that, like,
It's
once
tough.
you have those degrees, nobody's ever going to be able to take it away from you. Do you
Yep.
always need a degree? It's kind of like it
Yeah.
doesn't always, apply for every role, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of opportunities where if you have a, bachelor's degree and an advanced degree, it does help put you in other rooms and other
Mm.
conversations. And it
Yeah.
does help springboard you a little bit past certain people on proposals, in
Hmm.
interviews. And so what I said is, hey, I'm going to do everything that I can to set myself up for success because there's not a whole lot of farm boys in the in the top of the food chain in the working world. So
Yeah.
we got a little bit of catch up to do, right? We didn't have big executives coming over for dinner and this amazing network. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, we'll just
Sure.
go build it ourselves. We'll make that
Uh,
happen.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, so you made a leap from, the engineering world and you came into the entrepreneurial world and you started a company not long ago. And I'd love to kind of hear like the evolution of that and like how did that happen? You talk about, just a love for people and purpose and passion. And so I'm just kind of curious then, what drew you to this space?
So it's a intersection of what do I love, what am I good at, and where's there a need,
Mm,
in the industry. And John Putzier talks about this in his book. He might be another good guest to bring on, local rock star. And so I found that while I was at Lockheed Martin, I was trying to find these mentor people that are important for our professional success and development. I'm like, okay, but there wasn't really a process of where to find them or how to find them or what to discuss. So that's why I sort of stumbled along on this. And I've, talked to people at other, large, medium, small organizations, and it was a real frustration. And my friends around the globe, they had the same issue. So I'm like, okay, it's not just in Butler, Pennsylvania. It's not just in Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., East Coast, United States, this hemisphere. It's a global issue and a global
yeah.
concern. So we found out there's a problem, right? And then I'm like, okay, I have a stack of notebooks over here. We'll have to show them to you one day of literally every conversation since I graduated college. And it's
Wow.
all those different people of, hey, can you help me practice for an interview? Can you connect me to this kind of person? What's it like to be an engineer and to be
Mm,
working in this kind of a capacity? How'd you get to work? Right? Those different things. So now we figure out, okay, there's a need, there's a problem. I'm able to solve this problem, but the issue was that I didn't have enough time and I didn't know all the answers. So I'm like, okay, we got to keep doing this right thing of bettering the lives of others. And
mm,
so Latitude, the map to professional growth, was spawned from the my inability to help everybody. So it's
mhm,
okay if we have some technology, then we can connect people more easily inside of organizations. And the
mhm,
journey's gone a lot of different ways. But at the end of the day, it's a tool where you say, hey, people inside my company, let's get you onto this software platform so you can connect, build relationships, and ultimately save a lot of time so that you can
mhm,
stay here more because you feel that sense of belonging. And
mm,
whenever you boil
yeah,
it down, that's what it's all about. And no business leader is going to go against that kind of a concept. And now that we're in the age of employee choice, we're
yeah,
finding that, hey, we do have to invest in our people because if we don't,
mhm,
and we don't show them that we care, then they're going to leave and they'll speak with their feet.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, and there's, I think that there's a lot of companies that are recognizing that that's a huge cost. I mean, it's a huge expense to hire somebody and then to allow them to leave or to not invest in them and they take their talents elsewhere. And I think that that's a real shame. And it's I also believe too that there are a lot of senior leaders who are recognizing and waking up to the fact that we're not in the industrial era anymore, and we're not in the era of, hey, you get to work for me, and that's not the case at all. Employees, people get to choose where they go to work and where they invest their time and their talent. And I think that's really important for business owners and business leaders to understand. And that requires a change. That requires a change in mindset because that's not the way it's always been. And I think that's really important for business leaders to understand.
Yeah, it's huge, and not everybody's going to be there on day
Right.
one, right?
Sure.
And not everybody's going to be there tomorrow or even next month. And so, how can we continue excuse me, to share, hey,
Mm-hmm.
what this is what could happen, right? These are
Right.
the results that could, and you're working with emerging leaders and
Yeah.
people at the top of the food chain. Often you see it, right? And it's meeting
Yeah.
folks where they are. Sometimes you
Right.
work and you give an assessment, which we're like, okay, I guess if people need this, we'll build that, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes you need to do some trainings and workshops, right? And say, hey, well, let's focus in on the why. I'm a big fan of
Mm-hmm.
Simon Sinek, right? Start
Yeah.
with
Me
why.
too.
And then once you have the right people headed in the right direction on the right ship at the right time, then it's like, okay, let's explore some of this technology. So it's really been a journey of
Mm.
listening to the customer and listening to, who, well, I guess listening to what they need, and then understanding a big part of the entrepreneurial path is it's not a great fit for everybody, and
Yeah.
it's not always the right time. And so
Right.
a piece of that is saying, okay, I got you there. And a piece of that is understanding more in the sales process, right? I
Mm-hmm.
started learning about Sandler sales, and it's all just about relationships. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this isn't rocket science. I love it. So just adding a little bit of structure around some of those pieces. So shout out to Dan for his support and guidance there. But it's growth in so many areas.
Yeah, yeah, so true. Yeah, so talk a little bit about your technology because I think it's a really cool thing that is creating belonging within organizations, and I'd love for people to understand what it is, how it works, and really what the benefit is for people because I know we've got a lot of business owners and business leaders that are listening today.
Yeah, so let's do this in a two-part response, right?
Yeah.
We'll imagine it as a little bit of this, a little bit of that, of different tools that you use today, and then we'll go through an example of how somebody would use this and the benefit from it. So let's think of the best aspects of LinkedIn, right?
Hmm.
Where you have the what people want to talk about, and then you have Calendly, which is when they're available, and then you have Zoom, which is for a video call. And then you have your notebook, or you have maybe a software that keeps track of your notes. And then you have maybe a survey monkey or an email to send reports. So there's 5 or 6 different tools, maybe 7 or 8, depending on the organization. And Latitude does all of that in one step. And so it does reduce the number of tools needed in the connection process. Are we going to get rid of a Zoom or an email or a Skype or a something like that? No, we're not going to get rid of those tools. But whenever it comes to connection and professional development, we reduce the number of tools in that process. Right? What do you want to talk about? When you're available, get matched and have the conversation. Track your notes, and all of that is reported. So
Mm.
whenever we think about business leaders, they care about, are you going to save me time or are you going to save me money? And the answer is
Yeah.
both, right?
Yeah.
And so let's think about, the use case here. So let's think we have a lot of people that are coming in and out of the workforce, and there's a big experience gap. So we'll focus
Mhm.
in on the Gen Zs and millennials. What do they
Sure.
really care about now, David? And it's a lot about people and connection. It used to be
Mhm.
people and places, right?
Yeah.
So the ping pong table, the foosball table, the beer fridge in the office. Well, hey, newsflash, we're not all in the office anymore. So
Right.
how do we invest in them in other ways and say, hey,
Mhm.
I do care about you, like you mentioned earlier. So a new person comes into our organization, we sign them up on the Latitude software, and they're now able to say, hey, I'm going to talk to these 5 people in my first week. We're not all
Mm.
in the same office at the same time. Heck, we might not even be in the same time zone. But
Yeah.
having that structure and guidance from the start is huge
Mhm.
so that we're doing what you said as well, right? Building that belonging.
Belonging.
There's
Yeah.
none of this alone together and just kind of out on an island. Okay, so that's
Mm.
cool. Then they're onboarded, right? We like to
Mhm.
think. I think we talked about this last time of an immersion or an integration or an
Yes.
assimilation, not just an
Yeah.
onboarding, not just an orientation. Not my
Yeah.
words, right? Learning that
Yeah.
from David. So thanks again for that. I think I might have mentioned that on my LinkedIn post last night in advance of
Yeah.
our call today.
Love it.
But how do we structure that process over time? So now that they're on the team, okay, who are these folks going to talk with over time, right? Probably your manager, right? We
Yeah.
recommend, weekly, at least bi-weekly touch points. It can be less
Mhm.
than 30 minutes, right? What should I start doing, stop doing, shift doing, continue doing? right?
Well,
Start, stop,
yeah.
continue, shift. Just love that for and setting those expectations and
Mm,
reviewing your goals. Hey, this is what we set out to do this year, and here's how we said we were going to do it. We still on track? Okay,
mhm,
cool. So the
mhm.
accountability around those manager one-on-ones, your
Right.
mentors, right? Make sure that you're talking to your mentor because we've seen the research that says people with a mentor get promoted. I don't know, it's 5 times as much, and
Mm,
they're 3 to 6 times as more productive, which leads to more profitability. So
yeah.
it's like, hey there, Mr. and Mrs. CEO, we're just trying to save you money and help you make more, save you money and save you time, right? By
Mhm,
taking care of your people.
mm.
So those are some of the
Love it.
kind of summaries. As we were
Yeah.
going through the software, is there anything else that you'd kind of highlight, David? There's always, interesting takes, but you've seen it and dug around a little bit.
Well, I think the one thing that struck me is especially, and you kind of touched on this in the day and age that we're in, where we've got a lot of people in remote places. We're not all in the same office. We're not all in the same building. I think the beauty of what I saw in the technology was that it was able to bring connection to people that I could be here in Pittsburgh, and somebody else could be in Hong Kong. Somebody else could be in India. Some guy could be in San Francisco. And while I'm not in the same building, I can still learn from them and get connected to them and feel like I'm learning from them. I'm hearing what they're up to, and just having a connection for with people in a lot of different places. I thought that that was really a great tool. I really see it as a great tool in the era that we're in. And I think that there need to be more leaders embracing the idea of the fact that we can connect even when we're not in the same building. I mean, it's amazing. You and I were talking in a previous conversation about how we can connect on Zoom or on any video conferencing, and really feel like we get to know people, especially if we're asking the right questions. And then also when we get in the room together, we just had our summit, our annual Inner Circle Summit, and it's like I knew these people, from years ago. And so I think the tool that you have created is bringing the capability of bringing people together, creating those connections when we're not in the same building. And I think that was my biggest takeaway. I think, and being very intentional with it as well.
Yeah, adding a little bit of process, a little bit of structure. We think about, agile processes when it comes to software development and
Yeah.
project management. What about agile processes when it comes to people engagement and connection, professional development, and mentorship? Right.
Right.
And let's don't get me wrong. I'm as in person as it gets, right? If I give you
Yeah.
a handshake, give you a hug,
Yeah.
I'm always, going to try and do that.
Yeah.
And an interesting, small aside, one of my best friends is going into psychiatry, right? And
Mm.
he said, I think I'm going to become a teledoctor. And I was
Huh.
like, oh man, what about missing out on being with the people? And he said, Pete, think about this. Think about how many, multiplier, right? How many tens of more lives or hundreds of more lives, we can touch and we can work
Mhm.
with the power of technology.
Yeah.
And, do we lose a little bit without being there in person? Yeah. But
Mhm.
think about how much more we can do. So
Mhm.
thinking, and I'm not going to say it's like an 80-20 role because I don't think it equates just to that, but that's similar
Yeah.
concept, right? That
Yeah.
we can build these relationships and we can plan out, right? Hey,
Mhm.
this is great, talk to you next month, month after, but I'd really like to make sure that we get some coffee soon. Are you going
Yeah.
to be at this conference where we can meet up in person there? We
Mhm.
have our annual offsite, or hopefully it's more than annual offsite, right?
Yeah.
At such and such. So I'll, look forward to giving you a high five or a fist bump, at that time. So, I don't think 100% always forever remote is the right option, but there
Mhm.
is an opportunity to do some while not
Yeah.
always together.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true, so true. And I think I mean, as you said, I mean, there's definitely value in coming together and being in person. And I think that the tools that we have available to us today can foster those in person connections and really help us as we get together in person. And, it's almost like we can kind of pick up our conversation from, where we've had it, I love that. So Pete, what are you working on right now? What's your biggest challenge? What are you working towards, with Latitude, personally, professionally, whatever?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We talk about a lot of mental health and investing
Mhm.
in our people, and it's keeping the stress levels down, right? There's so many moving pieces. Our team is up to about 10 now. We just hired our first full-time employee. I don't even think I
Wow.
told you that.
No, that's
And I
awesome.
call him a team member or partner, right? It's not like, hey,
Yeah.
you work for me, you work with
Yeah.
me, right? We
Yeah.
work
Right.
together. So I'm excited that
Love
Angelo's
that.
here now. But that's
Congratulations.
been the big piece. So it's just a lot of moving pieces and the prioritization, right? So my three
Hmm.
words for this year are growth, which I thought you'd like,
Yep.
prioritization, and accountability. And
Mm.
so that's the focus. Growth as an individual in mind, body, and spirit, right? My faith is
Hmm.
important to me.
Yep.
I got a couple of pounds to lose, so that's important physically. And then always continuing to invest in myself, academically and thinking about how I grow mentally. And then on the accountability side is, hey, I said I'm going to do something, I'm going to follow up, I'm going to do it, right? In a timely manner,
Hmm.
internally and externally. And that comes down to, when we talk with our investors and our advisors as well for the company,
Hmm.
you have that sense of accountability. And I'm not saying that we were bad at it before, but I want to get better, right? I
Yeah.
want to get better at that. And
Yeah.
then the prioritization, right, is what's important now, that winning mindset.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to say, okay, I'm going to do some of this, and with all those digital distractions out there, it's possible to get nothing done, right?
Yes. Right.
And
Exactly.
if everything's on fire, then nothing gets put out. So
Hmm.
again, all these things that we've been working on, and whether you're an entrepreneur or a business professional or even just a parent, right?
Yeah.
You
Right.
have all these same things to look at, but how do
Hmm.
we really focus in and be intentional, and set realistic goals, right? I
Yeah.
said, hey, I'm going to lose 35 pounds in the month of January. Well, newsflash, David, I don't think I'm going to hit that goal entirely, right?
Right. Right.
We made a dent in it, but
Yeah.
it's just saying, okay, Pete, like let's reel it back and smart, right? I'll think of our smart goals that we can do. So
Hmm.
the challenges are just keeping a bunch of plates in the air, and
Hmm.
the things that I'm working on, building the company. That's priority A. Collaborating with some other organizations, some exciting news coming out soon, and then working on a book. So I'll share more with you about that at a
Love it.
future date. But it's a way to, again, my purpose is to better the lives of others, ignite that potential and inspire opportunity with people.
Mm.
And I can't reach everybody with a one-on-one conversation like this or at a
Yeah.
networking event in
Hmm.
Pittsburgh, DC, or Vegas. But if we're able to capture some of these lessons learned and insights and experiences
Hmm.
and add value to people, then they
Yeah.
can read the book at any point in time. So it's
Hmm.
not a revenue generating machine by any means, but a purpose driven mission,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of what my whole MO is, right? You don't,
I love it.
statistically speaking, you shouldn't leave your six-figure salary and go take a negative salary for a couple of years, right? That any financial advisor would say, huh, this does not make sense.
This
And
is, yeah, right.
statistically, you're going to lose, right? So
Yeah.
let's
Well, such
defy
is the
odds as we go together.
entrepreneurial journey. I know. I mean, some things just don't make sense. And that's why it's not for everybody. It's definitely not it's a tough road. I mean, I think there's a lot of, and we were talking before we went on air here today, it's a tough road, and there's a lot of challenges and a lot of things that we have to kind of press into that wear a lot of hats. And some people just don't want to do that, and that's okay. It's okay. But I was going to come back to your book for a second, because I definitely want to have you back on to talk about the book. And so we'll just kind of tease people right now that you're going to be coming back on at a later time this year to talk about your book, because I'm excited to read it, and to also share with the audience the things that you've got going in the book.
Well, I appreciate that, David, and let's have some fun with it, right? So the
All
book
right.
is about 75% written,
Ah,
and it's going to be it's a working title, right, involving people.
yeah.
Um, and we have about 20 chapters in there. And imagine you're an individual contributor or a leader in an organization, inside of HR, outside of HR, doesn't matter. And this is a book about how to attract, engage, and retain top talent.
Love it.
And there's tips and tricks in each chapter. We have some other resources that will align with this. So it's really, hey, I'm a first time manager. Hey, I'm a first time CEO. Hey, I'm a first time professional, right? What do I
Yeah.
really need to be thinking about, right?
Yeah.
Is my organization doing this the right way? What else can I be doing as an organizational leader? And that's what we've dug in with. So I think we have over 100 years of experience between us co-authors that are writing the book. So
Nice.
curious what other questions some of the listeners might have, once they get to this point. And we'd love to, include you, right? There are contributing thought leaders in the book, and there are, other people that we're going to, share. So I'm a big fan of us, right? And the Latitude team has gone from I and me to we and us.
Love
And
that.
that's what we're trying to inspire with others and
Mm,
kind of walking the walk and talking the talk. So
mm.
thinking about attract, engage, retain top talent in the workforce, and the tips and tricks and best practices and what to do and what to avoid. That's what we've dug into in the book, and
Very
excited to
cool.
dig in more detail next time we chat.
I love that, Pete. So, in the meantime, where can people get in touch with you? Where can they connect with you, and maybe even learn more about Latitude and the technology that you bring?
Yeah, so I appreciate that. And, number one is, we can connect on LinkedIn, right? That's an
Yeah.
easy, way. I've learned a lot about the platform over the last couple of months. Shout out to Corey, one of my friends and our advisor, for the digital growth over there.
Mm,
So
love that.
LinkedIn's number one, right? Go ahead. We'll put that. I don't know, David, if there'll be
Yeah.
some show notes, but that'll be
Absolutely.
super
Well,
simple.
yeah.
And then on the website, right? www.golatitude.com, Lattitude.com. And then, I'd say I'm also very active, in the greater Pittsburgh and DC areas. So if you see me, say hello, right? Just walk up and be like, hey, you're that tall guy I heard about. And, big feet. You're doing like left your job and you're kind of farming stuff. What was that? Is that you? Yeah, that's me.
That's
So
me.
please come
Oh,
over
love
and say
that.
hello, and reach out. We're in this together, and
Mm.
let's keep changing the world.
Yeah, right on, Pete. Man, I think that's a great place to end this conversation, and I really can't wait until we get back together again for that next conversation about the book, because I know that's going to be really cool, and I know that there's going to be a lot of people that we've enticed with just a little bit of the nuggets, the breadcrumbs leading to it. So excited to talk with you more about that. Is there anything else that we need to talk about today that maybe we forgot about, or that would just kind of wrap a bow on our conversation from your perspective?
So it's National Mentoring Month, right? We're recording this in
Yep.
January,
Yep.
and so it's just a piece of be intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
With your mentors, right, and your mentees. It's not
Love
always
that.
just up, but it's up, down, side to side. You can have peer to peer mentors as well.
Mm-hmm.
So just a reminder, to, if you haven't reached out to them for a while, to go ahead and do that, right?
Love
Um,
that.
and to say thank you. If you're, giving them a shout out on LinkedIn, tag me on LinkedIn, right? Be like, hey,
Yeah.
it's a happy National Mentoring Month. This Pete Schramm guy said I should thank you. And, David McGlennon, thank you so much for, being my mentor, being my mentee, right? But just
Love
take
that.
time to do that. And it's something
Mm.
that, the attitude of gratitude doesn't have to stop whenever the month of January ends,
Yeah,
National
true.
Mentoring Month, but just, kind of one click, a quick closing point there, that we can
Love
all
that.
take action on immediately.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so good, Pete. Thank you so much. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful bow to this conversation, man. Thanks so much for being here. It's so great to have this conversation. Thanks for sharing your growth journey, and really appreciate it. And looking forward to hearing where you are later in this year as you continue to grow.
Thank you. Let's do it.
Well, that was such a great conversation. And I have so many takeaways from this conversation. And quite frankly, can't wait to have Pete back on to talk about his new book that's coming out later this year. So the first thing that I think it's really a key takeaway for me is that who you surround yourself with matters. And I think that I've talked about this all the time, and it's really the premise on which our inner circles are built. Surrounding yourself with people who challenge you to think beyond where you're at right now and have that growth mindset is so important. And having people to help you think beyond where you are is really important for your growth. And the other thing that I thought was really interesting about what Pete shared today is just being curious. I don't know if you noticed, but he asked some really great questions just kind of in passing. And he even asked me a question that I thought was really insightful. But be willing to get outside of your comfort zone and just embrace that discomfort. I mean, we talk about that all the time here on this podcast. And I know with our emerging leaders, we talk a lot about getting outside of your comfort zone. But truly, that's where the growth happens. And it's not fun sometimes. And it's obviously not comfortable. But we have to be willing to get outside of our comfort zone and really do it on our own rather than being forced out of it. The other thing that I thought was really interesting, what he shared about his organization and about the software and the technology that he's built, and that is that building engagement and belonging within an organization is really going to give it a competitive advantage, but it takes intentionality. And quite frankly, it takes a growth mindset. And if you're a leader who thinks that, we have to go back to the way we did things and have that thinking of, hey, that's the way we've always done it. That's the way we've always done it. We have to stay away from that mentality. I mean, it's no surprise that we're not in the industrial era anymore. We're not even in the pre-COVID era anymore. I mean, we have people working remotely from all around the world, and we have technology to be able to get us connected even if we're not in the same room. And so I think that's what's really important about Pete's technology. The other thing I think was really something that I took away, and that is just, take steps, keep advancing. Goals are not accomplished in a day or a week or a month, but we have to just keep advancing in the direction of our dream, as Thoreau would say. But stay in that gain by measuring how far you've come. Look backwards, measure the gain, as Dan Sullivan would say, and just continue to keep advancing. So thanks for joining me here on this podcast episode. Please do me a favor, share this episode with someone that you feel would really benefit from this conversation. And also, I'd love to hear from you as well. Just shoot me a note at david@davidmcglennon.com. Let me know what you liked about the conversation, what you took away. And if you have some suggestions for other guests, man, I would love to hear from you. Do me one final favor, if you would. Give me a 5-star rating and give me some kind of a review on your podcast app. It really helps me to reach more people with this story of growth and being able to help others to grow in their organizations, their companies, their teams, and in their personal lives. So thanks for listening once again. Until next time, stay in that growth space and be well. Thank you.